at 6:00. Roll call, Eric, Suzanne, Jen, me, and Judith. Perfect. We have a quorum. Adjustments to the agenda, there are none. Public comment. There is none. Approval of the minutes, a motion for that? Okay.
Who's that?
Jen and Eric,
Eric.
second.
Thank you.
All in favor? Unanimous? All right. We are going to go into executive session to discuss a matter, a legal matter with counsel. I need a motion to take us into that executive session. Eric?
Second.
Seconded by Judith. All in favor? Well, I guess I should have asked discussion. Okay, all in favor again? We will go into executive session.
Um,
Light doors. Oh, we're back, right? We're back.
You're back.
All right, we're back in session at 6:33. I would like to make a motion to confirm the authority of our finance director to finalize the settlement with Modular Genius on behalf of RSU 57. Second by Jen. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right, very good. Next up, the Director of Finance Communication.
Evening. Thank you, Jody. For this evening, I only have a few things for you. I did have questions from committee members. I just gotta find the right piece of paper. One was Mark had asked at the last meeting in regards to a warrant item on Leslie University, and it said literacy. That was for a professional development, a virtual professional development for an instructional strategist, in order to do the science of literacy. And that is a relatively new person to the district that needed some training in that area. And it was a very favorable type of training. So that's what that related to. Received a question from another committee member in regards to our SROs, or school resource officers. And I'm going to paraphrase because it was various questions. And if I don't answer them all, just let me know. So one of the questions was how many. We have two. The total amount in the budget is $210,000. And that is within Article 9, which is the operations and maintenance article. Those two SROs, and Steve, if I leave anything out, please jump in, cover the entire district. One is more geared towards the high school, but these aren't in boxes. They're not, this is the only place I go. There is flexibility in where they go. The other spends a lot of time at the elementary schools and the middle school. They do overlap depending on what the needs are in a particular school or a particular activity or a particular day, or what really is going on in a particular day. For those of you who don't know, and this is some of the questions that were embedded in this, those two SROs are pretty much dedicated to RSU 57. And I say pretty much because over the years, we've had some very difficult conversations with the county and the county manager about how the contract and how the relationship works with the SROs. One is year-round, 12 months. The other is pretty much school year. And the first one was always pretty much year-round from the beginning. When we added a second SRO, that is where we negotiated pretty much a school year with some extra days. This particular structure for York County is really not unfamiliar to a lot of school districts. The county receives money from various towns within the county to support the operations of the county government. The county commissioners oversee, just like a school board oversees the school district, county commissioners oversee county government, and they have been very clear over years and years that we are going to pay whatever it costs for them, that should not be a burden or a cost passed on to the county in order for us to have school resource officers. I've met with the county manager many, many times over my tenure here. Steve and I have met with him during Steve's tenure. That's the position of the county. That is the position they have consistently taken. So how we are charged is quarterly, and we are charged for each officer's actual cost. So when I say actual costs, I mean they send us an actual spreadsheet that says, here's their salary, here's their health insurance, their dental insurance, their life insurance, their the county's liability insurance, everything is embedded in that cost of that budget of $210,000. Hopefully that answered most of the questions. If not, please let me know. But I think that answered that portion.
Those last week's,
Those were the warrants since the last meeting.
okay. I have some questions for
Yeah, when we get to that item, we will certainly
tonight.
entertain them.
I just wanted to Find out.
Yep. So every meeting, the warrants you're looking at are all the unapproved warrants since the most recent meeting you've had.
One more point. Ron, everything you said is complete. What happened in a few years? The person.
A few other things under my report.
I was just going to ask you two
Oh,
questions
sorry.
on that.
Sorry.
Turn your mic on.
Sure, of
Sorry,
course.
I turned it on.
I
That's
cut you
fine.
off.
We provide them with office space?
Yes.
Okay. And travel expenses, particularly for the one officer who must move around a bit?
They have their own vehicles
And
through the
we're charged
county.
for that?
We're not charged for the vehicles, which is something that's been negotiated through our agreement with them. We do provide the fuel for the vehicles through our own fuel, gasoline at the transportation facility.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we also do not cover any of their technology. Their technology is different. So they do have some access to some of our like wireless and things like that, but we do not provide any technology for them.
Land, Lyman, I have not heard any more, so we haven't met in a while, just wanted to be clear on that. Steve has received a couple of requests, which I have responded to most recently. One, I received information from a gentleman who owns the land at the corner of Rangy Road up in Line School, just across the street from Line School. Is kind of a little weird intersection. And that individual asked if the school district had any interest in buying that land. It's an elderly gentleman and his wife. I said, you know, this is something that goes before the committee, but from my perspective, there really isn't an interest on my part in my role as the finance and operations director to advocate for that. I don't see a real benefit there. The interest is about discussion about what size, but let's call it a quarter to a third of an acre roughly, is, well, buses are parking there. So I talked to Richie. He talked to all the drivers. Well, they're not really parking there. And I said to the individual, if you find them parking there and it's your land, certainly, here's my phone number, here's my email, take the bus number, tell me the time and date, and I will take care of it. Well, but the police also park there and CMP also parks there. And I said, well, I can only answer for the school district. So I'm bringing it forward to you. If you have an interest as a committee in having it on an agenda item in the future, go through the chair and we'll certainly do that. But I just needed you to know what the communication was that I shared with the individual. And from my perspective in my role, I don't currently see any benefit of entertaining a further discussion on that. But it's your job as a committee to direct me whether that's in alignment with you or not. The other conversation was with someone purchasing a plot of land on a side street off down by the middle school fields. If you are going down the fields on the right-hand side, there's a little development, dead-end development in there. And an individual had approached Steve in regards to, hey, did we want to sell some of our land at the middle school fields? Because that individual would like a couple more house lots. I have not had communication with that individual. I don't feel that there's a lot of, again, interest on my part in my role to bring forward to you to say there's a benefit. we are not in the business of buying and selling land traditionally. If there was a purpose for it and we didn't need land or not using it, there's still a lot down there. We don't know what we're ever going to do. We still have on our capital planning, we need to bring electricity in at some point in the future for irrigation down there. There may be other things that you want to keep that land for. Again, just like the last conversation, that's kind of ironic. They happened both within a couple of weeks of each other. I needed to make sure I gave you an update, let you know what I had said. And again, I don't see a reason to really pursue either of those at this time. And I'm happy to answer any questions on those you may have. Hopefully I explained them both clearly enough.
And just for your understanding, because they brought it forward to me, I felt compelled that it should at least come as an FYI to this committee. I did not speak with the individual out by Line School. That one I just gave directly to Colin. The other individual stopped in and spoke to me at length, and we talked about what other pieces of land might be available. Because I didn't think that it would be something that we likely would ever entertain for a variety of reasons. So by no means bringing this forward to you, should it be any reflection of any interest or desire, more of an for your information. And unless there's a strong urge to sell land, we would just look for your direction so that Colin will actually follow up with that secondary individual.
Any thoughts from the committee?
I don't see that as well.
Eric?
Kind of in this, I agree with you. There's no benefit of selling or buying, but we mentioned once about the brothers' land.
Yep.
Have we looked at that anymore?
I have not pursued that more at this time. We just, it hasn't been on the plate, but it's still there. Wes and I have talked about it some, just in general terms, but we haven't gone deep into that. I think as we talk about the capital planning, when we talk about resources available, we certainly can do surface level, but at some point we would also then have to add that to the list and talk about how much time and money specifically to get professionals in to look at that land. But no, I have not to date.
All right, so to give Colin clear direction, we're not interested in buying the piece of land by Line School, and nor are we interested in selling any land by the middle school. Good. All right, next up, we're lucky to have Richie for a transportation update, sir.
So as he comes up and talks, I had said to you that a few times during the year, I would have Richie come, and I felt this was good timing before we start getting too far into budget, to hear firsthand from Richie as the transportation director, how it's going without the transportation or a separate transportation committee of the board. And I intend to have Richie here as often as you want, but I'm planning on 3 times during the year and kind of spread that out so that you have firsthand communication from him. So,
Oh, I was thinking you'd be here every meeting now.
well, during budget time, excuse me.
I just wanted to see his face.
Thank you. So I wasn't sure what the finance committee would want to hear, so I've just prepared a short set of notes like I would have for the regular transportation committee. So pretty much on staffing, all of our regular bus routes are fully covered by the assigned bus driver. I have 1 full-time utility driver right now and a second one studying for their school bus endorsement. So we'll have 2 full-time utilities, which I haven't had since I've been here. So pretty excited about that to cover absences and sports trips and field trips with a little more comfort. All of our van routes are covered by assigned driver, and I have 2 utility drivers for vans. When they're not covering van routes, they're learning other van routes. They're assisting the mechanics, getting vehicles to other facilities for work, cleaning the vans, just doing odd jobs around our building. We did hire a full-time mechanic to fill in the open position we had. So we do now have 2 full-time mechanics, which is working out real well. The BusRight software has been much easier and friendlier for the staff, drivers and parents, that enables the buses to be on a live map and You can see where the bus is on the route. The biggest problem we've had with that is connectivity. We're still working through it with Busrite. The software company's been very proactive in assisting us with the service, the best cell coverage, and updating the driver's tablets. I think it's gotten a lot better in the last month or so for us on our end. The fleet continues to run in good working order. No major issues or complaints. The replacement cycle has proved itself to be a good cycle, good system. The oldest regular bus on the road is 5 years old. I know there's other directors and other districts we talk to that they're still riding in 10, 12, 14-year-old buses. So it's important to me because this provides safe, modern equipment for the students and staff, for the safety and reliability. And to retain staff, they want to drive a good vehicle. They don't want to drive something old and worry about it breaking down, worry about the kids getting cold if it does break down. So that's what I've got for notes.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? None?
I just want to add, Busrite, regardless of Busrite or any other software, you know the district, you know where we live. There are going to be spots in this district that regardless of what vendor we have, whether it's the software vendor or the mobile service, is going to be an issue. It's going to be a problem. What Richie's talking about is trying to mitigate that as much as possible, which is what he and Shane in the technology department have done. So I think it's done really well. I think the software is a much improved software. And I want to thank you for that because the other software was a very old software. That forced us to upgrade some of our software in regards to inventory and our bus repair software and maintenance software for our buses and vans. So I also want to say thank you to Richie and the whole transportation team. We've made some great strides in staffing that other districts haven't. I want to thank everyone in the transportation department, from Richie to the drivers, to the mechanics, to the office staff. It has been nice to be able to have full routes, not being canceling routes. And I know a lot of districts are still struggling with that. And I just want to acknowledge that publicly because it takes a whole team to do it. It's a large district. And with Richie's leadership and the whole entire team, they've done a great job in really having our students at school and home every day, as well as all the other things, whether it's special education or athletic or co-curricular trips after school. They've done a really great job. So I just want to say thank you for that while Richie's here and for all of those employees.
Good, and I'm sure that we as a committee agree with that. We really do appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much for being here and for what you do and for what everyone in your staff does. Super, very lucky. All right, next up is review of the financial report.
So you have a one-page document that has two sides to it. I'm going to start with the side that says general fund revenue summary. So revenues to date, local tax assessments and state subsidy are coming in as expected, so I don't have any concerns there. ROTC, we haven't received the first quarter. We receive ROTC revenue quarterly, and that's for July through September, so we should be getting that soon. That's why you see a big goose egg there. Medicaid, again, it's the start of the year, so we're just starting to get, that takes a little while for those claims to be filed, to be processed through the state, and then us to get reimbursement. So we should see that pick up. And then other revenue, the large portion of that is interest on our money in our bank accounts, but we also have some other miscellaneous revenues, and that is tracking ahead of schedule right now. So I think we're on track as far as revenue is concerned with where I would expect to be for this time of the year. On the flip side are the 11 warrant articles. I'm going to start with an overall saying that I have no concerns in any of the areas to date. Things are tracking really well. I don't have concerns in a specific article. I think as the year goes on, we'll continue to track this and really see where it plays out. There are going to be some articles you're going to say, well, why is that so high? Or there are a lot of articles where in operations is one of them. Special ed is another where we do encumber as much as we can within reasonable standards. But there are a lot of things that get charged to the expended to date column when we pay them. We just can't encumber absolutely everything. So I think things are really tracking as I would expect. I don't have any areas of concern right now. I will say, and you've seen it on the news recently, and it's more with towns maybe than schools, and I'm not picking on towns, just that's where it is right now. And there were some in New Hampshire where, well, a town is short X amount of money. And why did that happen? Or a school is short X amount of money in their budget. Why did that happen? These controls that we talk about, and at the next meeting, we're going to talk about the budget process. And what is that process? And the last part of that process on the last slides is about monitoring the current year fiscal budget. Once the budget's approved, everyone thinks, oh, the budget's done. That's only the start of your responsibility and our responsibility as leadership to really monitor the budget, make sure that we're being held accountable, things are being recorded properly. Mistakes do happen. But those safeguards are important for you as a committee. It's part of your responsibility, and for me as your finance director to be held accountable to those standards. So it's not ever going to be perfect. But that's why we go over this. That's why I report out to you. That's why you ask questions. That's why you look at the warrants, because that's the fiscal accountability. It will not guarantee that we may not be one of those someday, but you mitigate that risk as much as possible by all these controls you put in place, and this is one of them. So I just want to say that because it's been in the media a lot in the past month or two, and folks really struggle and they go, well, what happened? And that's what happened. So I want to thank you for your diligence in really reviewing this and bearing with me as we go through this, because it is important to the process and for you as a committee to hold me accountable to make sure we review this and go over this. So I just want to say thank you. And at this time, I'm comfortable with where we are for this year.
Questions for Colin? Great. All right, we're going to move on to the revolving renovation fund.
This one's going to be really quick. You know, we applied. That process and review process of the Department of Education is still ongoing. We are anticipating that, according to the DOE's information, that they will have a final priority list in mid-January. So really, until then, we're kind of in a holding pattern, and we'll see what they come out with. Remember, this was for all of those structural upgrades on the roof at Alfred Elementary School. So we'll see where that plays out, and then I'll keep you informed. Mark and I and Wes have agreed that we're going to keep this on until we get that listing, just as a standing agenda item, so we don't lose track of it. But that's all I have for this evening.
Good. All right.
Just one
yeah.
comment about that. It'll be interesting to see what that list comes out as, because the school construction list, most folks thought it was going to be like 5 or 6 schools. They ultimately are only funding 2. Both of those schools were the ones that burned down. One is in near Bath, and one is up in Frenchville, where you can throw a rock across into Canada. I don't know if that might mean they're going to do more for the renovation funds, or if the renovations funds might follow suit with a limited scope similar to the construction. So once we know, we'll be able to share that with you.
And I can add just a little bit to that. In the fall, when this was coming out, there were a lot of warnings from the DOE that they didn't have a lot of money in this round of the school renovation funds. So that may have changed since then, but I am anticipating that that's going to be a pretty short list, is my estimation.
So this is maybe a silly question. So the 2 schools that are getting funded for renovation or to have new school buildings built that are being funded by the state are schools that burned? So they don't have insurance to fund a rebuild?
I can't answer that question.
That, I'm curious about that as to how much is the state going to be funding or the Department of Ed going to be funding for buildings that should, in theory, be pretty well funded for a rebuild anyway.
And then not to go too far down the rabbit hole, then it also goes into, as you know, it goes into what kind of insurance they had and what insurance coverage did they have under their policy.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Like, who's their agent?
A lot of unknown.
I would imagine that it's like car insurance. It doesn't cover what you lost. It covers not what you bought it at or a brand new car, but it would cover whatever the car was worth at the time.
Property
So if
insurance
it's
is
an-
different.
Yeah. So if it's an older school, then
Yeah, property insurance works differently though than car insurance. Property and, never, we won't get into it.
I know, well, I know I have property.
Good. Unless I'm mistaken, Richie, I don't think there's any reason. Go home. I maybe don't want to go home. Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for attending in person.
Thanks, Richie.
All right, an important one next, we're going to review the budget schedule.
So at the last meeting, we had reviewed last year's budget schedule, and we had agreed to pretty much utilize the same format, the same timing. We had agreed that we would do weekly meetings, but if, as we go through the process in February or March, we don't need them, we'd address that at this time. I had in my notes, and I may have been mistaken, if I was, I apologize, that we were going to start at 6 this year and not 5:30, and we were going to keep the meetings to between no more than 2 hours, but ideally an hour and a half. I put 6 in for these meetings. If I misunderstood that and you had agreed to 5:30, I apologize, but I had in my notes 6 o'clock, which I thought was correct. So I just wanted to call attention to that because I was a little wishy-washy on that when I put this together.
That is clear. That discussion took place at the last meeting, and I think, Jody, you were concerned that we maintain the consistency of all meetings.
Right, so every meeting will start
Yep.
at 6, whether it's committee or a full board, and I think that just makes it easier, especially with everyone getting used to finance being on Tuesday and the other committees being on Wednesday nights, leaving it at the same time, I think would make it easier. I think Jen also said like,
Yeah.
maybe that would be easier as well.
Is everyone comfortable with that? Yes.
Just one quick question, on this one, March 23rd? March 23rd, so 6:30? Is that typo or is that?
No, so that is a budget review session. That's a public session, not a specific finance committee meeting. And that's when we traditionally have had it. You certainly can change that time. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. Last year was the first year we had it here in this room in the East Building, and it was televised, so it could also be recorded and posted. But certainly, and the other one that is different from 6 o'clock, but is consistent with prior years is the district budget meeting on this schedule slated for May 5th at 7 p.m. Other than that, everything else that is a committee meeting would be at 6.
And Jen, you recognized that was a conflict, but Colin resolved that. So the concert was moved, I guess. Yes, yeah, that's been addressed.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard. Question. The middle school chorus concert was already like scheduled.
I talked to Kelly the next day, and she said that she would adjust that concert accordingly. I don't know if she has adjusted it, but she said she would adjust it to be a different day.
All right. And then question as a first time committee member. How would you want me to proceed if I have, so on January 13th?
Yep.
Is the middle school band concert at 7. Do you want me to come for almost an hour or find another Waterboro person to represent me? Yeah,
You probably want to leave a little sooner.
well, that's what I'm saying, like 45
Yeah.
minutes to get
I've
from
had
here
do
to.
that myself, where Wilton to get to that concert, I'm parked behind the school.
Yeah, I just was trying to figure out what you would rather have me do, like
So-
sit in for 45 minutes or find someone else to cover for me.
Typically, it's better to sit in as much as possible. We understand, and I don't want to speak for the committee, but just historically,
Right.
the more consistency we have, because it is hard to come to the 5th meeting of the year, not have been part of the other 4, and then be a contributing member. Because they do build upon each other and have things that if you don't know the other meetings, is difficult. Also understand there's going to be a snow day probably in there at some point. Someone's going to get sick. I'll leave that to Wes and Mark, but typically as a committee, we've tried to be as consistent as possible with that because it's just hard to bring someone in for one meeting.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask.
I would not stay here a minute beyond 6:30. Just so you don't stress to get there. You need to be a parent as well. And getting a parking spot is nearly
yeah,
impossible for
that
those
could be tricky.
concerts. So trying to balance the two, but your window is short with your kids and events.
No, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm going to go. Just wanted to know if you wanted me to come a little bit or
Yeah.
not come at all.
A little Jen is better than no Jen, so there it is. Any other questions for this is an important, obviously, calendar for us. And other than, it's different than other committees. We need a lot more, so thank you for that.
Turn your mic on. Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Now you're right.
So I have a graduation to attend in Wyoming on May 15th. So there's no way. I mean, no worries. May 15th should be fine.
Yep.
Nothing will get pushed. Okay, good. I was,
my birthday.
oh, it's a good day. So
I have a question. Last year's budget review session, public, did we do that on a Monday last year or did we do it? Do you remember?
We did. I kept it on the same day of the week.
So I just want to, you probably saw this, but I don't know if anyone else has known, and I have no preference either way. But doing the budget review session on the 23rd, finance on the 24th, and there is a full board meeting on the 25th. So that is a triple header that week. I am fine with that, but it might be something that,
Could we
If the
combine
committee-
the 23rd and the 24th?
You could, it's just depending on how the 23rd goes. We've typically tried to keep a day or two in between so that if there is input, the committee members have time to process that, really have a discussion, because that timetable between then and April 8th is really firm. We need an approval on the 8th in order to meet the timelines to get publications out for the budget meeting on the 5th. So if we're going to do that, I know historically we don't have a lot of people. This year may be different. I don't know. But I would just encourage that you have time between that, because the 24th really is going to be what needs to be changed, because if stuff needs to be changed, I need to do it between then and the 31st.
While we're talking about conflicts, just ahead of schedule, on the 9th of December, regular meeting, Dr. Doyle will replace me. I have a couple of medical procedures that I'll be out of commission. And it was either that or miss the board meeting.
Other thoughts on the calendar? Does anyone want to comment on that, 1, 2, 3, 23rd, 24th, 25th? But I'll just suck it up and do it, right? Fair enough.
triple header.
Yeah, woo-hoo. All right, we've got some donations to talk about.
Do you want to approve that calendar, or do you want to wait and approve it at the next meeting?
Does it need to be approved?
I do, because then I publish and do that the finance committee approved the schedule. I think it's important.
I make a motion to approve the calendar.
There we go. Second? I'll second it. Jen seconded it.
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor? There we go.
Thank you.
Unanimous. All right, now donations.
Donations, in accordance with board policy, donations over $1,000 typically come to this committee as a matter of efficiency and it being a subcommittee of the school board. So I have two specific donations this evening. One is from the Fraternal Order of Eagles in Waterboro. They traditionally do a donation this time of year. That donation is to help with our outreach program. and that was for $1,000. And that is one that occurs every year. The other is from the Knights of Columbus, and they have donated to our outreach program a lot of jackets to the tune of about $1,954 of value. And then our outreach coordinator works with Dr. Doyle and how those are distributed. The jackets, high school and middle school students and families in particular request a need for it, and then that goes through our outreach. At the elementary level, it typically works with our outreach coordinator, principals, and others within each school-based community to figure out where the need is. So I would ask that the committee approve those two donations.
Is there a motion to do so? Jen, and seconded by Judith. Discussion? Only question I have is who extends thank yous to those organizations?
That'll happen through the outreach coordinator and or the principals.
Okay, because
That'll get coordinated.
these are very generous, and, you know, we want to make it clear that we very much appreciate it. All in favor? Here we go.
I'm going to add one other that just briefly, and it's not one to accept this evening, but I am talking to a parent of a child who passed away a while back and wants to do something in remembrance of that. And I'm working with Wes and Mark and also working through our previous procedures and protocols. And I did tell that individual and met with her and said I would at least start informing you folks that I was going through that. I will likely have something for you at the December meeting and a recommendation upon that. And it wouldn't be something that would probably happen till springtime anyhow, but I do need to do a little bit more homework on that. But I just wanted you to know that I was going through that process for that potential donation.
No, I think, you know, that's wonderful, and we appreciate that, the effort. And no questions. Good. All right, audit update.
That's another one of my and your responsibilities. We're at the tail end. What we've been dealing with, one is we're down a payroll person in the business office and have been for a while. The person we extended an agreement to, their selling of their house in Tennessee has taken a lot longer than they thought. I've received notification that they do have it under contract. They do have a sale pending and anticipate that they're going to be up here in December at some point. So all to say that we have some work to do still, but we haven't been able to resolve it. The major one is that there's a new auditing standard and accounting standard that requires a bunch load of work and historical data that we've started to collect. But to be honest with you, we're doing it in between a lot of other things. That's not an excuse, but that's the reality. So we've been delayed longer than usual on this because of those factors. I wanted to let you know it hadn't dropped off the table. We are still continuing to work on it. But I did want to let you know that that's taking longer than I had anticipated or wanted. But we're doing the best we can in order to accomplish that. So it's definitely on the radar. It's certainly in my mind, and we will work towards that goal. But in full transparency, I wanted to be very direct about that's where we stand currently. Once I have more details of when we can close that out and move forward, I'll let you know. But I don't need action from you, but certainly happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? It's always nice to get people from Tennessee. Nicest people in the world. All right, very good. Capital planning update. Colin could give us a detailed update, which would take a half hour to 45 minutes, or we could encourage him to be brief, give us a paper update and allow us to consider it and pick it up at the next meeting. What's your pleasure? I think I know. So Colin, if you could give
So the
us a brief.
45 minutes?
Yeah, the brief.
I am happy to do that.
Well, the only good thing about that would be it would completely blow Steve's estimate out of the water. So brief, please.
So we have updated the capital planning summary, which is like a 2 or 3 page stapled copy. I've updated some more on the narrative. So that now is about a 4 or 5 page document. But I also have a 1 page, and this 1 page comes from myself and Ben and the operations team. Under all of what we've talked about the past couple months is taking the other list and really looking at each item. And I'll just give you the 5-minute overview here is us going through each individual item on that capital project summary, those 3 or 4 pages, and saying, okay, what are the things that are either immediate concerns as far as health, safety, wellness, and security, or are going to be either in the short term or near term? And we've broken that out in a tier 1 and a tier 2, kind of meaning tier 1 being the most important, tier 2 being kind of the second level of importance. And then I added a third column, which I'll talk about in a second. But tier 1 and tier 2, you're going to see one there at the top, which is Alfred Elevator with a question mark. And that is because we just recently in the past month had an inspection there and learned there's new elevator codes going into effect. The question mark is, I don't know if that elevator is going to be affected or not by these code changes, and what we would need to do there. Your next question would be, well, what about line in middle school? I don't know that either. But the one we do know about from our contract vendor is Alfred as a potential. We're meeting with them, Ben and I, in the next couple of weeks to really get more details. So that's the question mark there. The others really come down to, and Mark, you were one of the ones that said really focusing on the health, safety, wellness, security, and those items. And again, we've talked about this a little bit. Some of these might be now, but some of them also might be if we don't do something, they are going to be in the next year, 2 years, or 3 years. The right-hand column is a column I added, which came up in our conversations internally, which are, as we build the budget, there are various things which are the vehicles, roofing, masonry, and electrical audits, which are kind of embedded primarily into Article 9, which is the operations and maintenance article, vehicles a little bit in Article 8, which is transportation. Those things are embedded in our current budget. I'm just giving kind of the warning that if we start cutting budgets and start reducing, I put those on this list because if we cut from those areas that are currently in the budget and have been kind of the mainstay of making sure, especially on roofing and masonry, that we're preventing water from infiltration into our buildings, that may then have to seep into the capital planning. They're not completely mutually exclusive circles. There may be some overlay there that we would have to consider. That's an FYI. That's just for you to consider and keep in mind as we go through the budget process. Those would probably be the most significant areas out of what I see that could potentially come then back into the capital planning discussion. Kind of a wait and see and to be determined on that, but I just wanted to give a heads up to that because as we plan, those are areas you have not heard from me as being risk items in building our budgets because we've kept up with them. And you can see on the capital summary sheet, it's saying part of general fund budget. Again, just to keep in mind, nothing for today or next week, but it's important information, I think, for you to have. We can talk more, which is kind of where we get into the longer discussion about why are these here. I have updated the narrative to include anything that we have talked about previously, as well as any items which are on this rating schedule of tier 1 or tier 2 that might not have previously had a narrative, now has a narrative as well. So if you get into, let's say, exterior doors or windows, they have a narrative now. I thought it was important that if it's either in the summary or on the rating schedule, that you have some sort of short narrative there, and then we'll certainly be digging deeper into the weeds on those as we get into the discussions.
Thank you.
Does that help give an overview?
Perfect. Now we're doing Venn diagrams. Does anyone have a quick question for Colin? Again, with the understanding that we really are going to dig into this as we go forward.
The Alfred roof right now is not in any budget because it would be the 26-27 budget. That's where it would be going. Again, with the Alfred roof, it's kind of weird because we've kind of got this. Are we going to get the revolving renovation money? And that takes us down one path. If we don't, then we're in a very multi-year project for that school, which will take us down another path. And we really can't make those decisions till we know about revolving renovation in mid-January, which actually is real good timing because as we get into the budget development, that will give us kind of our roadmap of which direction we anticipate needing to go.
Other questions? Thank you for, there's a lot of time through by Colin and his staff and everyone that went into trying to make those priorities. And they certainly are the people who know best what our needs are. So we're going to take a very detailed look at that.
And that
later.
may change as we go through this process. We may all have different takes as we go through it and hear different things. This is not an in the stone thing. This is a starting point to having those discussions as part of the strategic plan.
Perfect. All right, Judith, we're going to talk about warrants. Did you have some questions or are you going to?
Do we have to do the, or and then questions?
We could do it that way.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean,
Judith, please turn your mic on.
what, okay, looking at the warrants, and I'm talking in specific warrant 2620, I noticed that there were 3 companies chosen for snow removal, Chessie, Brown, and Foglio. Why 3?
Excuse me, because they're in different parts of the district. So Foglio does the high school campus. Brown does middle school and Waterboro Elementary, and Chessie does the 4 outlying elementary schools.
Okay, that's what I thought. In warrants 21 and actually several of the other warrants, I noticed that there was Booth Bay Therapies, Hammond Therapy, and Tiny Triumphs, and they all do speech therapy. Do we not have our own speech therapist?
Speech therapists are really hard to come by and really hard to hire. Tim O'Connor and his team have been trying for a long time to hire speech therapists and have not been successful. We would prefer to have employees and hire those positions, but we're not currently able to. And in accordance with IEPs and other special ed requirements, we have to provide services under those programs. So that's where we use subcontract labor for those.
How are these, for lack of a better term, companies paid? Is it per diem or is it
Yep.
per hour or?
They're paid for their time, so the time that they spend at their hourly rates.
I also noticed in several warrants that there was something called EI Hospital Tutor.
Yep.
In SPED.
Yep.
And what is that program?
That's a company that when students are not in a school or a facility and they're in other types of medical care, and we have to provide by law certain required educational requirements, that we utilize that company in order to provide those services.
And how many students are involved in that, would you say?
From what I see on the bills, only a few. I don't have the exact number, but I would say less than 5 is what I typically see on the
Okay,
bills.
well, I saw it on several warrants, so I
Yep,
wanted to
because the-
ask a question.
No, because they bill Judith pretty regularly. So that's why you're seeing them frequently.
And my last question is, what is Soliat Health?
that is a subcontractor for nursing services, again, through our special education department in order to provide services for individual students who have
Okay.
needs that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Any other questions about the warrants?
I just said, Judith answered one. So I saw on there was 2 lines for was it Maplestone on November 3rd? Like the exact same amount, but 2 times, but it didn't list, is that like 2 different students
Yeah.
or something? Okay, because normally there's like initials or something.
I don't know if that just wasn't left in the narrative, but those are 2
2
different.
different, okay. And then I saw a thing for Rebel cheer uniforms. Like, is that one specific school for that amount or,
That would be through athletics and it would be cheer uniforms for the cheer team.
but like middle school, high school, just high school? 'Cause that seems like a lot.
We can double check that, but I believe it's, the middle school has never had cheering uniforms. There's been some cross-referencing and some borrowing from, say, Mayfac. So, we don't ask any other program to be borrowing uniforms from rec leagues and youth leagues. So, that's something that we really had to address for equity purposes. So I'm quite confident it is the middle school.
Middle school, okay. Well, that's what I was wondering.
Do you know which one it was on, Jen? Which one?
I don't, sorry.
What? Who was it again?
It was Rebel cheer
Rebel.
uniforms. So
I
I
will
was
get you-
thinking that sounds like the middle school, but I just wasn't sure if like high school was,
I will get you an answer, Jen.
that was the last of my
We've
question.
had conversations about that particular need over the last month or so. That's why I believe it is the middle school. But we'll confirm.
And the other thing, and you'll see it as you go through the budget process, athletics, co-curricular, a lot of areas, but this one is what we're talking about. Uniforms have a replacement cycle to them too that are budgeted so that they're staggered over time, so that we're not on a roller coaster of costs are high in one year and lower in the next. Still trying to meet student needs, but then also balance the budget impact of that as well, just as an FYI.
Any other questions? Motion to approve the warrants? Judith, second by Suzanne. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
I'm
Good.
sorry, I was looking
Oh,
at his
yeah,
high
Judith
school.
and Suzanne.
It is high school? Well, you'll see one at the middle as well.
And Suzanne.
Suzanne. It was high school uniforms.
All right, we have a whole schedule of meeting dates. But it's important work.
The meeting dates will get posted to the website. Traditionally, just for your information, and may start getting questions. There is a budget tab, or will be a budget tab for the development of the 26-27 budget. This will be the first thing that will go under that tab. The prior 2 years' budget tabs are still there as well. But just for your information, that will get posted to the website so that it's publicly available for folks.
All right, so that was an hour and 26 minutes. So I think you had the over?
84.
80.
I upped it to 84, and I was
All right.
still off, but I did take the over on Steve.
All right, but it's 7:27. We're officially adjourned.
Thank you, folks.